Man, this is 101 Reasons Why Your Black Ass Couldn't Be From Africa, Part 1.
What's up, everybody? And I'm going to give you just as many reasons why you shouldn't believe everything you hear on the internet.
When you go to slavevoyages.org, scroll down to the word estimates. It would take you to the Transatlantic slave trade estimate, and this is the data sheet right here. But we're going to focus on this area right here. The country that we want to select is the USA, because we are from North America. We're not focused on Spain, Portugal, Great Britain, the Netherlands, France, or Denmark.
Okay, but you shouldn't exclude them. What they're showing is the flags of the ship. Basically, in what country the ship was registered. We don't care what flag the ship was sailing under. We only care about where it picked people up and where it dropped them off.
So we're only focusing on the good old USA, which is North America. I'm gonna focus on the embarkmentation regions. To let you know, the word embarkmentation is the act of loading passengers or military personnel onto a ship or aircraft. The country we selected is Africa. Well, let's go down here to the disembarkment regions, and we only going to focus on North America. So we're gonna uncheck Africa, Brazil, Danish, West Indies, Dutch Americas, Europe, French, yada yada yada, and all this. Oh, sorry, no. We're gonna mark Africa because this is where we want these people to come from. We want them to come from Africa.
Yeah, you already selected where you want the people to come from when you select embarkation. With disembarkation, you're selecting where you drop them off, which should have been mainland America, but you already knew this.
And the word disembarkment means the act of leaving a ship or aircraft or removing goods from a ship or aircraft. The year we have selected is 1501 to 1866, and we can clearly see when slavery actually started. A lot of people believe it's 1619, but I brought it back to 1501 just for the safe side. And here is the results.
No, here are the results. Going to the same website, slavevoyages.org. We're gonna come down to flags and keep all of them selected, because USA only got its flag in 1776. So before then, the Africans would have been coming on ships operated by European powers. Alright, now we're gonna pick disembarkation as mainland North America. Basically what the number you're showing are ships operated by Americans that picked Africans up and then dropped them off in Africa. And then here we have the numbers. Almost 500,000 individuals, and again, this is just the ones that are documented. We can see 2,000 brought here by Spain, 400 by Portugal. The most came from the Great Britain, so 320,000. Of course, these were the people who were bringing Africans here before America was established. 1,500 from the Netherlands, 135,000 from the US.
Starting at 1776, that is when we starting to see these imports of Africans coming over here. Look at the total number of Africans that was actually sent over here. We're looking at a grand total of 2,965, and we're talking about North America. So what is the black population in America today? The black population in the United States is 41.57 million as of 2022. You mean to tell me all of your black asses came from 2,965 Africans?
470,000, and no, I can't do that math, but I'm sure there are biological or economical models for estimating population growth, and with whichever model you choose, make sure you factor in the undocumented ships, because these ships are just the ones we have documentation for. And by undocumented, I mean legal, at least legal according to the white man's laws at that time, ships whose documentation just hasn't survived. You also got to factor in the illegal ships, the ships that transported Africans to places or during times when it was illegal to do so. The next thing you got to factor in is Intra-American Trafficking, because if you use the same database to look at the numbers of Africans brought to Brazil, you'll see that their numbers are a lot higher. If you look at the map, you'll see why, because the distance between Africa and Brazil is very close compared to the rest of the continent. A lot of Africans that made it to mainland North America would have come from the Caribbeans and South and Central America, and both of these are exemplified by the Amistad Revolt and subsequent court case. The entire argument of the defense was that these Africans were being transported from Africa and came directly from Africa, and therefore should be free because it was illegal. while they were trying to convince them that they came from, I think, Cuba, and therefore it would have been legal at that time, and therefore they should have remained enslaved. And Africans won that court case. And all of this proves that 1, people were being brought here from Africa. 2, there was trafficking going on within the Americas. And 3, there was illegal trafficking going on, which would not have been documented, of course, and therefore wouldn't be counted in this database. And if you look here, the numbers for the US go down significantly in 1825. I guess that's around the time trafficking across the Atlantic became illegal in the US. But we know that the Emancipation Proclamation wasn't until 1865. So that's 40 years that slavery was still going on, and likely a lot of smuggling. Another thing you gotta factor in is the forced breeding and reproductive and sexual abuse that went on. Women were forced to have children even if they didn't want to. In some places, women who had over a certain amount of children got their freedom. You had studs going around, males that were forced to go around and breed with women all over. So that's something else you need to make sure you factor in. And look, I'm not here to say that black people aren't indigenous to America. I'm not here to say that black people came from Africa, which are two separate things altogether. Black people could have already been here, and a lot of black people could have been brought here from Africa. So you need to debunk or prove each one independently. But I'm not here to talk about any of that, at least not in this video. What I'm here is to make sure you just don't believe everything you hear on the internet. And if we look at the comments section of this video, we'll see that most people agreed, and only one person pointed out that he did it wrong.
These devils can't hide shit from us no more. What is that you guys looking at right there, huh? You tell me.
This brother's happy because he found pyramids in Georgia. I've been trying to tell y'all all along, America is ancient so-called Africa. It's the old world, ancient Egypt and the land of Canaan, Alkebulan. The Garden of Eden's found over here. Everything that you learned in their miseducation systems that they call schools and universities, you need to throw that garbage away. Because that's all it is. It's garbage. It's a bunch of lies. None of it's true. Modern day Africa, I don't even know what it used to be called. If you know the true name of that continent, you know, that they call Africa today, help me, because I have no idea. But this is ancient Egypt over in America. In fact, those pyramids over there in Giza, modern day Egypt, they were actually modeled after the pyramids in America, in the Yucatan to be exact.
Or they were modeled after pyramids in that same region, like the Step Pyramid of Saqqara, which is the first known pyramid and was designed by Imhotep and commissioned by the pharaoh Dozier.
If that's the motherland, why are the pyramids being modeled after the ones in America? Make it make sense.
I can't, because it doesn't.
And then also tell me why those of us in America are so-called African Americans who they just can't seem to find the correct name for us. Why do we have the ancient Kemetic DNA over here?
Maybe it's because they were Africans and y'all are too.
And those people over there in modern day Africa in Giza don't even have the DNA of the ancient people. We know the truth. It was a big old ruse. They found all of the artifacts and the mummies and all that stuff in the Grand Canyon, and they took that stuff over there to modern day Egypt.
They actually took most of it to Europe. The majority of stuff that's still in Egypt are the stuff that's too big to move.
They even made a museum over there. I've even been to the Museum of Cairo over there in modern day Egypt. And they, you know, to make it seem as though, oh yeah, this is where everything happened. This is where, man, it's a wrap. Y'all lied. We know the truth.
And also with her, I'm not here to argue any of the points that she made. I'm here to caution you, don't believe everything you hear online. The best thing to do when you hear new information is to double check from another source or check the sources. She didn't provide much information, so it's hard to go back and fact check. Now, one thing that she is right is that they lied. They stole Africa's history, and I'm convinced that's the reason why her and so many people don't want to claim Africa in its history, because they don't know it. Our legacy was stolen, and this narrative is reinforced all the time, everywhere, in media, in schools. They're always looking for a way to reinforce this narrative that we don't have any history, and it was them that created everything. Exhibit A.
This is Queen Amos Meritamen. She was the great royal wife of King Amenhotep III and the daughter of Queen Amos Nefertari and King Amos I, who are essentially the founders of the 18th dynasty. These two images are probably our most famous depictions of the Queen, this being her outer coffin and this being her inner coffin. Now, whereas the inner coffin used to be gilded, which essentially means covered in gold, this covering of gold was stripped by tomb robbers, allegedly, which has left it this really pale, dusky yellow colour. However, what happened to the outer coffin is slightly more insidious, because whereas one might assume that this buffered cream colour was the desired colour of the Kemetic artists when they made this coffin, that's not actually true. If you look closely, you can see the dark brown around the eyes, the dark brown under the nose, and on certain parts, and around the entire edging of the coffin, essentially telling us that this coffin used to be varnished a very deep, rich brown, which would be typical of the 18th dynasty, but it was sanded and buffed to become this creamy, wooden coloured texture, which would make you think that this was the target colour, and it wasn't. So I thought it would be an interesting exercise to see if I could restore the outer coffin to the colour that was targeted, and essentially this is what I came up with. This deep, rich brown is typical of what you'd see in the 18th dynasty. You see it with her mother, Queen Amos Nefertari, and you can see it with her offspring. They're all normally depicted in a colour that's very similar to this, so it's not unusual that we find remnants of that colour on her outer coffin. Seeing them side by side, it's honestly quite striking to see the overall impact that this small change in colour has. But it does make you wonder, if tomb robbers were responsible for stripping the gold, who was responsible for stripping the brown?
My guess is the same guys that stripped the brown from this guy and gave Africans a distorted version of the Bible.
Listen to the biggest difference between China and Africa.
China is shown as atheist, like doesn't believe in God.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, mostly we teach us to believe karma, of course, but believe yourself. You need to use your own hand to change your life. That's why we are so much work holy, and people work like crazy. And now you see the country is really developing, economy is growing really fast.
In Africa, we solve problems through overnight prayers and believe that a miracle will happen someday.
Chinese, American, African.